My son Mark stood at the head of the Thanksgiving table, his glass raised, his face a perfect mask of sorrowful duty. He looked every bit the devoted son. "I have a sad announcement," he began, his wife Brenda nodding tearfully beside him. "My mother, my dear mother Evelyn, is no longer capable of making her own decisions." He was talking about me. I was sitting right there at my own table, in my own house, and he was lying. Before we get to how I answered him, please do me a favor and subscribe to the channel. Let me know where you're watching from in the comments. I also really want to hear your opinions on what you would have done in my situation. My name is Evelyn, and I am 74 years old. Until that moment, I thought I knew my son. I had been a widow for 2 years. My husband Arthur had passed quickly from a stroke. A blessing, I suppose, that he didn't suffer long, but the house felt empty without him. Arthur had been a history professor at the university for 35 years. I had been a high school English teacher for nearly as long. Our home was built on books, quiet understanding, and trust. The kind of trust that comes from sharing a life, building something together brick by brick, word by word. Our study was his pride. Floor-to-ceiling shelves filled with first editions, leather-bound volumes, histories of empires that rose and fell. He'd stand there with his pipe, running his fingers along the spines. "These books are our legacy, Evelyn," he'd say. Not just knowledge, but proof that we spent our lives learning, questioning, growing. After his death, I continued our life as best I could. I kept my journal, the one I'd maintained for 40 years. I paid my bills on time, balanced my checkbook to the penny. I managed the household just as I always had. My mind, despite what my son would have you believe, was as sharp as ever. I could recite poetry I'd memorized in college. I could tell you the exact date Arthur and I were married, the weather that day, what I wore. I remembered my students' names, even the ones I'd taught 30 years ago. The change began 6 months ago, though I didn't recognize it as a change at first. Mark, my son, and his wife Brenda started visiting more often. Not just visiting the way family visits, with a phone call first, asking if it's convenient. No, they started arriving. They had a key, of course. For emergencies, Arthur and I had given it to them years ago. A key they now used as a permanent pass into my life. I'd be in the study, reading in Arthur's old chair, the leather worn smooth from decades of use. The smell of his pipe tobacco still clung faintly to the fabric, and the front door would simply open. No knock. No hello, are you home? Just the sound of the lock turning. Footsteps in my hallway. Brenda would breeze in, her voice always a little too loud, a little too bright. "Mom, just checking on you." As if I were a child who needed checking on. The first incident was small. So small I almost didn't notice. One Tuesday afternoon, I was making tea. Earl Grey, the kind Arthur and I had drunk together every afternoon at 3 o'clock for decades. I had just filled the kettle with water. I was reaching for the burner knob when Brenda rushed into the kitchen. She snatched the kettle off the stove, her face twisted in exaggerated concern. "Mom, you forgot to turn on the flame. You nearly burned the house down." I stared at her. "Brenda, dear, I was just about to—" "It's okay, Mom," Mark said, appearing behind her. He patted my arm, that condescending pat you give a confused elderly person. "We're just worried about you. Living alone, it's a lot." "Maybe," Brenda said, exchanging a look with Mark. "Maybe we should start coming by more often. To help, with things." They stayed for an hour that day, hovering. Brenda reorganized my spice cabinet, claiming it was chaotic. Mark checked the smoke detectors, even though I'd just replaced the batteries. Before they left, Mark paused at the front door. His hand rested on the key hook where my car keys hung. "Mom," he said slowly, "we've been thinking. Maybe we should hold on to your car keys. Just in case." "Just in case of what?" I asked. In case you forget, you're not supposed to drive, Brenda said, her smile tight. You know, with your confusion? I'm not confused, I said, but Mark had already taken the keys off the hook. He slipped them into his pocket. It's just temporary, Mom. Just until we're sure you're steady. He didn't ask. He took them. I said nothing. I watched them leave, my hand steady as I turned on the burner. As I poured the hot water into my teacup, my mind was anything but steady. That was the first crack in the facade. The gaslighting, I believe it's called now. I'd read about it in articles about elder abuse. I never thought it would happen to me. It was insidious, the way it crept in. A week later, they came over for dinner. I'd made pot roast, Arthur's favorite recipe. The house smelled like home, like the hundreds of Sunday dinners we'd hosted over the years. Mark and Brenda sat at my table, their faces etched with what I now recognize as false concern. Mom, Brenda said halfway through the meal, setting down her fork, you told us that story about your old student, Sarah, 3 times today. I frowned. I did? You did, Mark confirmed, his voice gentle but firm. Once when we arrived, once during appetizers, and just now. I hadn't told them about Sarah once that day, let alone 3 times. I knew I hadn't. With the way they looked at me, with such pity, such certainty, it made me doubt myself for just a moment. And the study, Mark continued, glancing toward Arthur's library, it's getting cluttered, Mom. All those books, stacked on the floor now, piled on the desk. It's hoarding behavior, Brenda added softly. It's a symptom of decline. They were talking about Arthur's books. The books he'd spent a lifetime collecting. The books I'd been cataloging, organizing by era and subject, just as he would have wanted. Those books are not clutter, I said, my voice sharper than I intended. They're Arthur's legacy. Arthur's gone, Mom, Mark said. His hand covered mine on the table. And holding on to all this, it's not healthy. The next weekend, I decided to rest in the afternoon. I'd been up late the night before, finishing a novel. I dozed off in the living room chair, the autumn sun warm on my face. When I woke, I heard voices upstairs. In the study. I climbed the stairs quietly, my heart beginning to race. The study door was open. Mark and Brenda were inside, with cardboard boxes. Arthur's books were being pulled from the shelves. This is just junk, Mark, Brenda was saying. She tossed a leather-bound volume of Gibbon into a box without even looking at the title. Old dusty junk. It'll all have to be sold for the estate sale anyway. I know, Mark muttered. He was wrapping a first edition in newspaper. Just get it boxed up. She won't even notice it's gone. She barely knows what day it is anymore. I stood in the doorway, my hands trembling. Not from age, from rage. Get out of my husband's study, I said. My voice didn't shake. It was clear, cold, and precise. They both froze. Mark turned, the book still in his hands. Mom, we were just... Get out. The look on their faces wasn't guilt. It wasn't shame. It was annoyance. They were annoyed that their problem was still lucid enough to catch them. We're trying to help you, Brenda snapped. This place is a fire hazard. You can't even take care of yourself, let alone all this stuff. Put the books back, I said. Now. Mark set the book down on the desk, not on the shelf. Fine. We'll talk about this later. When you're calmer. They left. Not quietly. The front door slammed. I heard Brenda's voice from the driveway, shrill and angry. She's impossible, Mark. We can't wait much longer. That night, after they'd driven away, I went back to the study. I knelt down beside one of the boxes they'd packed, and I saw it. A pamphlet, glossy and expensive looking. It must have fallen from Brenda's oversized purse. Willow Creek Estates. Luxury Assisted Living. I opened it. beautiful photos of smiling elderly people in pristine rooms. Activities, care, a community for those who deserve the best. I turned to the price list in the back. The entry fee alone was staggering. $50,000 just to get in the door. Then monthly fees that rivaled a mortgage payment. How did they plan to afford this? Then I understood. They weren't planning to afford it. I was. Or rather, my house was. My home. The one Arthur and I had bought 40 years ago. The one we'd raised Mark in, filled with memories and love and life. They were going to sell it. I sat in Arthur's chair, the pamphlet in my lap, and I didn't sleep. I couldn't. My mind was racing, turning over every conversation, every visit, every small comment. I knew they would be back, and I needed to be ready. The next day, I didn't answer the phone when Mark called. I let it ring, then ring again. Finally, I heard the key in the lock. They'd come anyway. I was in the living room, sitting in my chair by the window. I'd positioned myself carefully, my head tilted back, my eyes closed, pretending to doze. They didn't bother to lower their voices. They thought I was too far gone to hear or too confused to understand. They were in the kitchen, just around the corner. "She's getting worse," Brenda whispered, though her whisper carried easily. "Did you see her yesterday? She just stared at us. Didn't even recognize we were trying to help. The house alone," Mark said, "if weasel it, our debts are gone. The second mortgage, the credit cards, the car loans, all of it." My blood turned to ice. "But she won't sign the power of attorney," Brenda hissed. "We just need her to sign that one document, Mark. Then we can move her to Willow Creek, sell this place, and be done with it." She's still too aware," Mark said. His voice was frustrated, like a child to need a toy. "Then we make her less aware," Brenda said. Her voice was cold, flat. "We keep visiting. We keep pointing out her mistakes. We make her doubt herself until she doesn't trust her own mind anymore. Then she'll sign." I sat in my chair, my eyes closed, my heart pounding so hard I thought they'd hear it. My phone was in my lap, hidden under a throw blanket. The recording app was on. I had started recording the moment I heard the key in the lock. I had my proof. Every word captured. They left 20 minutes later, after checking on me. "She's still asleep," Mark had said, peering into the living room. "Good. Let her rest. She needs it." The door closed. I waited until I heard the car pull away. Then I opened my eyes, stopped the recording, and saved the file. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. From rage. From determination. They came back 2 days later. The masks were back on. All smiles and concern and "We love you, Mom." "Mom," Mark started, sitting down across from me at the kitchen table. He was holding a sheaf of papers. Official looking, with legal letterhead. "We've been talking, Brenda and I, and we've found a way to help you, to make things easier." "A power of attorney," Brenda said, sliding the papers across the table toward me. "It just means that Mark can help you with things. Pay your bills, manage your accounts, handle your affairs. So you don't have to worry about all that confusing paperwork anymore." I looked at the document. I'm not a lawyer, but I'd been married to a man who read every word of every contract. I knew what I was looking at. This wasn't just a simple POA for bill paying. This was a durable power of attorney. The kind that gave the holder complete control over finances, property, medical decisions. Everything. I started, my voice intentionally soft, confused. "My hand has been shaking lately. I don't think I can sign this today. My writing gets all wobbly when my hand shakes." "It doesn't have to be perfect, Mom," Mark said. His voice was tight, impatient. "Just sign it. We'll take care of the rest." "No," I said, pulling the papers back toward me. "No, I need to read it first. Arthur always said, 'Never sign what you haven't read, Evelyn.' And I need to speak to my lawyer about this. Mr. Henderson. He handled Arthur's estate.
Mr. Henderson retired 5 years ago, Mom, Brenda snapped.
Her patience was gone, her mask slipping. You don't even remember that, do you?
See? This is exactly what we're talking about.
Oh dear, I said, putting my hand to my forehead. Did he?
I suppose I forgot.
I looked up at them, my eyes deliberately vague.
I'm sorry, I can't sign this today.
I need to think. Mark's face went red. He stood up, the chair scraping loudly against the floor.
You're being stubborn, he shouted.
When you're incompetent, you don't get to be stubborn.
We're trying to help you, and you're making this impossible.
Brenda grabbed her purse, her movements sharp and angry. You'll regret this, Evelyn, she said, using my first name like a weapon.
You'll be all alone, confused, and you'll have no one.
No one but us. And we won't always be this patient. They stormed out. The door slammed so hard, a picture frame rattled on the wall.
I listened to their car peel out of the driveway.
Then I picked up my phone. I didn't call Mr. Henderson. He had indeed retired 5 years ago, just as Brenda said.
But I had his replacement's number.
Better than that,
I had someone better.
I called Sarah. Sarah Evans had been my student 28 years ago. Brilliant, focused, the kind of student who asked questions that made you think. She'd gone on to law school, specializing in elder law. We'd kept in touch over the years, Christmas cards, occasional lunches. She answered on the second ring. Mrs. Davies?
Her voice was warm, surprised. I hadn't been Mrs. Davies to her in years.
Sarah, I said, my voice clear and steady now. It's Evelyn. I need to hire you.
I am being gaslit by my son, and I need to protect myself.
There was a pause. Then Sarah's voice changed, all business. Don't sign anything. Don't say anything to them.
I'm on my way. I'll be there in an hour.
She was there in 45 minutes.
Sarah sat at my kitchen table, her laptop open, her legal pad covered in notes.
I played her the recording. The voices of my son and his wife, cold and calculating, filled my kitchen. House alone, if we sell it, our debts are gone.
Just need her to sign.
We make her not there. Sarah's face went pale, then hard.
This is textbook financial elder abuse, Evelyn, she said. They're attempting to gaslight you into signing over control so they can liquidate your assets.
I know, I said. Arthur's trust, Sarah continued, pulling up files on her laptop. He set up a revocable living trust. I have the documents here from probate. This trust is ironclad. He protected you.
But, she looked at me.
You're currently the trustee.
If they can get you declared incompetent, or if you sign a durable POA, then they can control the trust I finished.
Exactly. Sarah leaned forward.
We need to amend the trust immediately. We name a successor trustee, someone other than Mark, someone you trust completely.
I didn't hesitate.
Chloe, I said.
My granddaughter.
Mark and Brenda's daughter. She was 23, had moved out the day she turned 18. She'd told me once over coffee that she couldn't stand her parents' obsession with money.
They don't care about people, Grandma, she'd said.
Just things. Just status. She and I were cut from the same cloth.
Sarah smiled. Perfect. I'll draft the amendment today. We'll need to get it notarized, filed with the trust documents. And Evelyn?
She looked at me seriously. You need to keep playing their game. Act confused when they're around.
Let them think they're winning. Because when we're ready, we're going to hit them with everything.
The next 2 weeks were a blur of careful choreography. During the day, when Mark and Brenda visited, I played my part. I fumbled with teacups. I asked the same question twice. I stared off into space at strategic moments. They ate it up. She's declining so fast, I heard Brenda whisper to Mark one afternoon. Good, Mark replied. The faster she goes, the sooner we can move forward.
At night, I met with Sarah.
We amended the trust, naming Chloe as successor trustee. We met with a geriatric psychiatrist, Dr. Patricia Morrison, who evaluated me. "You're sharp as a tack, Evelyn," Dr. Morrison said, smiling. "Your cognitive function is well above average for your age." She wrote a detailed letter on official letterhead documenting my competence. We met with a financial planner who helped me understand exactly what Mark and Brenda would try to access. The house valued at over $600,000. Arthur's life insurance, still sitting in an investment account. Our savings, modest but significant. In total, they were trying to steal nearly $1 million. We met with a notary public who witnessed and sealed every document. Sarah worked magic. Within 10 days, the trust was amended, filed, and legally binding. Mark's name was removed entirely. Chloe was now listed as the successor trustee in the event of my incapacity. And my incapacity could only be determined by Dr. Morrison, not by my son's word. "They don't know any of this happened," Sarah said. "And they won't until you're ready to tell them." "I'm ready," I said. Then came the invitation I'd been waiting for. Mark and Brenda arrived on a Wednesday afternoon. Their smiles were huge, almost manic. "Mom," Brenda said, her voice sugary sweet, "we have such wonderful news. We're going to host Thanksgiving this year." "Here," Mark added. "In your house. Like old times." My heart began to race, but I kept my face neutral, mildly confused. "Thanksgiving?" I said slowly. "Yes, Mom, Thanksgiving. We'll invite everyone. Aunt Mary, Cousin Robert, the whole family." "It'll be a big celebration," Brenda said. "Just like when Dad was alive." The way she said Dad with false affection made my skin crawl. "But that's so much work," I said. "All that cooking, all that cleaning." "Oh, Mom, don't you worry about a thing," Brenda cooed. She patted my hand like I was a pet. "You won't have to lift a finger. You just sit there, look pretty, and don't say anything." Confusing. "We'll handle everything." "All right," I said, nodding slowly. "If you think it's best, dear." They left that day practically skipping. I watched them from the window. Brenda was on her phone before they even got to the car, probably calling Willow Creek, making arrangements. I called Sarah the moment they left. "It's happening," I said. "Thanksgiving. They're planning something." "Good," Sarah replied. "Then so are we. I'll have everything ready." "Evelyn, are you sure you want to do this in front of the whole family? It's going to be dramatic." "I'm sure," I said. "They want to humiliate me in front of everyone? Then they'll get a show." The week before Thanksgiving, Chloe arrived. She knocked, something her parents had forgotten how to do. I opened the door and she hugged me tightly. "Grandma," she whispered. "What's going on?" "Dad's been acting so weird. He said this might be your last Thanksgiving in this house." "Oh, I think he's right about that," I said, winking. "But not for the reason he thinks. Now, come help me baste a turkey. We have a lot to prepare." Chloe and I spent the week cooking. We made Arthur's favorite stuffing, the one with chestnuts and sage. We baked pies, apple and pumpkin. We set the table with the good china, the set Arthur and I had received as a wedding gift. Mark and Brenda came by every day, ostensibly to help. Really, they were staging. They brought over framed photos of themselves, positioning them prominently. They rearranged furniture. They were already acting like they owned the place. "This is going to be perfect," Brenda said, surveying the dining room. Just perfect. She had no idea. Thanksgiving Day arrived. The house filled with family. Aunt Mary, Arthur's sister, who'd always been sharp and observant. Cousin Robert and his wife, Helen. Mark's uncle from his father's side. Neighbors we'd known for decades. 20 people crowded into my dining room. The smell of roasted turkey filled the air. Chloe moved through the kitchen with me, calm and efficient. "You okay, Grandma?" she whispered. "Never better, dear," I said. Mark and Brenda held court in the living room, playing the devoted children. "Mom's been struggling lately," I heard Mark say to Aunt Mary. "It's been hard to watch." Aunt Mary, bless her, looked skeptical. "Evelyn seems fine to me," she said. "She made all this food, didn't she?" "Oh, we helped," Brenda lied smoothly. "She can't really manage on her own anymore." Dinner was served. Everyone sat down, plates piled high, glasses filled with wine. The room buzzed with conversation and laughter. Normal. Happy. Familial. That's when Mark stood up. He tapped his glass with a fork, the crystal ringing out. The room fell silent. "Friends, family," he began, his voice a solemn. "Thank you all for being here today." His face was the perfect mask of sorrowful duty. Brenda beside him, her eyes glistening with fake tears. "This is a difficult moment for us," Mark continued. "As many of you know, Mom has been struggling. Her memory, her judgment, it's been failing." I heard gasps, murmurs of concern. "Brenda and I have made the difficult decision to take over her care. We'll be managing her estate, including this house. And we found a wonderful facility, Willow Creek Estates, where she'll be safe and cared for." He paused for effect, his hand on his heart. "She's agreed to all of this, of course," in one of her more lucid moments. "Haven't you, Mom?" Every eye in the room turned to me. This was the moment I was supposed to nod, confused and compliant. The moment I was supposed to let them win. I took a sip of water, set the glass down carefully, and I stood up. The room seemed to hold its breath. "Mark," I said, my voice clear and strong. "Brenda." "Thank you." Their smiles began, relieved. "Thank you for being so very concerned about my assets." The smiles froze. "You're right, Mark. This is a day for announcements. So let me make one of my own." I pulled my phone from my pocket. "I've been worried too, you see." "Worried about your credit card debt?" "About that second mortgage you took out on your house. About those car loans you can't afford." Mark's face went white. Brenda's fork clattered to her plate. "You seem to think I'm not all there," I continued. "But I was there enough to record this." I pressed play. The audio filled the dining room. Mark's voice, Brenda's voice, crystal clear. "The house alone, if we sell it, our debts are gone. Just need her to sign the power of attorney. We make her not there." Aunt Mary gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Cousin Robert's face went dark with hanger. The room erupted in shocked whispers. "And," I said, raising my voice over the noise. I pulled a folded document from my cardigan pocket. I was lucid enough to meet with my attorney 2 weeks ago. I unfolded the paper. "This is a legally binding amendment to the Arthur Davies Family Trust. As of November 15th, I officially resigned as sole trustee." "What?" Mark whispered, his voice strangled. "You can't—" "Oh, I can, Mark." And I did. I looked around the room, at my family, at people who'd known me for decades. In the event of my incapacity, which you two seem so eager to prove, my successor trustee is not Mark. It's not Brenda. I smiled at Chloe, who sat at the fair end of the table. "It's my granddaughter, Chloe." Chloe raised her glass to me, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "Furthermore," I continued, "my incapacity can only be determined by Dr. Patricia Morrison, a board-certified geriatric psychiatrist, not by a pamphlet from Willow Creek Estates, not by my son's word." I set the paper on the table, and just to make this crystal clear, Mark and Brenda are permanently and irrevocably excluded from my will, my trust, and my estate. Their names, their access, all of it is gone. You had your chance to be my son, Mark. You chose to be a thief instead. The room was dead silent. Then Mark lunged forward, reaching for the document. "You old bitch," he screamed. "You can't do this!" Cousin Robert,
A large man who'd played football in college stood up and blocked Mark's path.
"That's enough," Robert said, his voice like granite.
"You heard her. Get out."
"This is my mother's house," Mark shouted.
"No," I said quietly.
"This is my house, and you are no longer welcome in it." The room erupted then. Not in Mark and Brenda's defense, but against them. Aunt Mary was crying, furious. "How could you do this to your own mother? She raised you, loved you." Helen was on her phone.
"I'm calling a locksmith. Evelyn needs your locks changed tonight."
Mark and Brenda were surrounded, not by sympathy, but by family members who now saw them clearly, saw them for what they were: greedy, cruel,
willing to destroy an elderly woman for money. They tried to argue, to justify, to spin the recording as a misunderstanding.
But there was no misunderstanding. Their own words had condemned them. Finally, Brenda grabbed her purse. "We don't need you," she spat at me. "We don't need any of you."
"You're right," I said.
"You don't need us."
"But you do need money. And you're not getting mine."
They left. They didn't take their coats, didn't say goodbye. They just fled, out my door, into the cold November evening. The room was quiet for a long moment after they left.
Then Aunt Mary came to me, taking my hands.
"Evelyn," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry. We should have seen it. How long has this been going on?" 6 months, I said. "But it's over now." Chloe came to stand beside me, her arm around my waist. "I'm so proud of you, Grandma," she whispered. The dinner continued, but it was different now. Lighter somehow, despite the drama. My family rallied around me, offering help, support, love. Real love.
Not the kind that came with conditions and price tags.
That night, after everyone had left, Chloe and I sat in the kitchen. We made turkey sandwiches from the leftovers. The house was quiet again, but it was a good quiet. A peaceful quiet. "What happens now?" Chloe asked.
"Now?" I said, taking a bite of my sandwich.
"Now I live my life. On my terms." "What about Uncle Mark and Aunt Brenda? What about them?"
"They have their debts, their choices, their consequences."
"I'm done carrying them." Chloe nodded.
"Grandma," she said after a moment.
"Yes, dear?" "When you're ready. Really ready."
"To step down as trustee. I promise I'll take care of everything, the way Grandpa would have wanted."
"I know you will, sweetheart," I said. "That's why I chose you." The legal aftermath took several weeks.
Sarah filed a restraining order to keep Mark and Brenda away from my property.
They violated it once, showing up at my door demanding to talk.
The police escorted them away.
After that, they didn't try again.
I heard through family that they'd filed for bankruptcy within 3 months.
The house they couldn't afford was foreclosed on.
They moved to a small apartment across town.
I felt no satisfaction in their downfall, just sadness for what might have been. For the son I thought I'd raised, who turned into someone I didn't recognize. Chloe moved into the guest room for a few months, just to help me settle into this new normal. We sorted through Arthur's books together, cataloging them properly. We found notes he'd written in the margins, little jokes and observations. It made me feel like he was still here, in a way. "He'd be proud of you," Chloe said one afternoon. We were sitting in the study, surrounded by those precious books. "For fighting back." "He'd be proud of you too," I said. "For having the courage to be different from your parents." 6 months after Thanksgiving, I got a letter. It was from Mark. I almost threw it away without opening it, but curiosity got the better of me.
Inside was a single page, handwritten.
"Mom, I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything. I know what I did was unforgivable. I was drowning in debt, and I convinced myself that you wouldn't really miss the money, the house, that you'd be better off somewhere safe, taken care of. I see now how wrong I was.
How cruel. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry. Mark.
I read it twice.
Then I folded it and put it in a drawer.
Was it a real apology? Or was it a last-ditch attempt to get back into my good graces and my will? I didn't know. And I realized I didn't need to know. Whether Mark was truly sorry or not didn't change what he'd done. Didn't change the fact that he'd been willing to erase me, to make me doubt my own mind for money.
Some betrayals are too deep to heal.
A year after Thanksgiving, I was sitting on my porch. It was autumn again, the leaves turning gold and red. Chloe pulled up in her car, carrying groceries.
She'd taken to stopping by twice a week, not to check on me, but to have dinner together.
I brought ingredients for Grandpa Stroganoff, she called, climbing the steps. Perfect, I said, smiling. We cooked together that evening, the kitchen warm and filled with the smell of onions and mushrooms. You know, Chloe said as she stirred the pot, I've been thinking about Thanksgiving. Oh?
About how you waited, how you gathered all your evidence, planned everything.
Some people would have confronted them right away, as soon as you heard them in the kitchen. Why didn't you?
I thought about that. Because anger without strategy is just noise, I said finally. I needed to be smart, not just right. I needed to protect myself legally before I exposed them. If I'd confronted them immediately, they would have denied everything, gaslit me more. Maybe even succeeded in having me declared incompetent. So you played weak until you were strong, Chloe said. Exactly. We sat down to eat, the stroganoff rich and comforting. Do you ever regret it? Chloe asked. Cutting them off completely? No, I said without hesitation. I regret that it was necessary. But I don't regret doing it. They made their choice, Chloe, and I made mine. 2 years after that Thanksgiving, I'm still here. In my house, in my study, surrounded by Arthur's books and my memories. My mind is sharp. My health is good. I wake up every morning grateful that I fought back. I teach part-time now, tutoring high school students in English literature. I mentor young teachers through the district's program. I volunteer at the library, helping with literacy programs. My life has purpose, dignity, and joy. All the things Mark and Brenda would have taken from me. Dr. Morrison still evaluates me once a year, as stipulated in the trust. You're remarkable, Evelyn, she told me at my last appointment. Cognitively, emotionally, physically. You're thriving. Because I'm free, I said, and I am. So let me ask you this. If you were in my position, what would you have done? Would you have confronted Mark and Brenda immediately, the first time they tried to gaslight you? Or would you have done what I did? Gathering evidence, building a legal fortress, waiting for the perfect moment. At what point is patience strategy? And at what point is it just ensuring the inevitable? Some people have told me I should have tried to reconcile with Mark. That family is family, and forgiveness is important. But here's what I believe. Forgiveness doesn't mean letting people continue to hurt you. It doesn't mean pretending the harm never happened. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and for them is to set a boundary and hold it. Mark needed to face consequences, not to punish him, but because consequences are how we learn. Without them, he would have done this to someone else. Maybe he still will, but it won't be to me. If this story resonates with you, if it makes you think about the elderly people in your life, if it reminds you to listen when they speak, to believe them when they say something's wrong, then please share this story. Like this video, subscribe to the channel. Not for me, though I appreciate it, but for the next grandmother who's being told she's incompetent when she's not. For the next elderly person whose family sees them as an ATM rather than a human being. Your engagement helps this story reach them. And maybe, just maybe, it gives them the courage to fight back. To say no. This is my life, my home, my dignity, and you cannot have it. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for believing that a 74-year-old woman can still be sharp, strategic, and strong. Now go call your parents, your grandparents, the elderly people in your life. Not to check if they're okay, but to really talk to them, to listen, to see them as whole people with full lives, because that's what we all want in the end. Not to be managed, not to be decided for, but to be seen, to be heard, to be respected, until we take our last breath. Remember that. And if someone tries to take that from you, or from someone you love, fight back. You're never too old to stand up for yourself. Never too old to say no. Never too old to reclaim your life. Thank you.